Hello everyone and welcome back to Paperback Journeys, where today we're going to play a little bit of fiction roulette. Good spin. So if you're new to the channel, basically what I do every month is I use this wheel to kind of help me decide what I'm going to be reading for the month that's coming up. So this is going to decide what I'm going to be reading in May 2024. I can't believe it's May. I can't believe it's already May. That's mental. Normally I read more than 4 books every month, but this just kind of helps me because sometimes I can be a little bit indecisive, and so this just helps me to decide these are definitely 4 books that I'm definitely going to be reading for the month. I want to start off this video by saying that I'm sorry that I haven't been posting many videos recently. The reason being is that for a couple of weeks of this month, I was actually away on business, and so I just got really caught up in that. I was actually up in Colorado for the first time, and if you're a Stephen King fan, I went to quite a landmark. That wasn't part of the business trip, but I just had an afternoon off, and so I went over to, you can probably guess, it's in Colorado, right? It's Stephen King specific. I'm going to talk about it more in my next video that's going to be coming out in the next couple of days, where I do the monthly wrap up. Yeah, so I just wanted to give that explanation. That's why I haven't been putting out many reviews or videos on the channel. But let's get on to find out what's on the wheel for the month of May. So basically this wheel consists of 10 books that I'm really excited to read, so there's no losing. The first book that I'd absolutely love to read in the month of May is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. This is a Western, and that's not my typical go-to genre. I read The Gunslinger last year and the entire Dark Tower series by Stephen King, and that had a lot of Western kind of cowboy elements to it. But outside of that, I haven't really read that much in the Western genre. So this definitely isn't my typical pick. But with that said, I've just heard so many good things about Lonesome Dove. It's one of those books, I think, that maybe even if you haven't read it, you might have heard of it, especially if you spend a lot of time on BookTube or BookTok like me. From what I've heard, this story is about 2 friends and former Texas Rangers who decide to move cattle from the south, from Texas, up to Montana. And it's all about the adventures that they have along the way, the kind of weird characters that they meet along the way. What really caught my interest about this book isn't like so much the cowboys or the cattle drives or anything like that, but the fact that the book is about friendship, it's about brotherhood, it's about love, romance, the changing American West at the turn of the last century. And I've heard that, it's just really immersive. And most importantly, that the characters are really well realized. And if you've ever watched this channel before, you'll know that's what I'm all about. I'm all about the characters. I'm pretty excited to see if this book lives up to the hype, because this is a lot of people's favorite book. This comes up all the time, so let's see. The next book that I'd love to read, and it's been on the wheel for a little while, is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This is about a professor named Jason Desson. He's living a good life. He's got a wife that he loves, and he's got a little boy. And then one day, this college professor is kidnapped and he's knocked unconscious. And when he wakes up, he is in a world that is completely foreign to him. Not so much the location, but rather his life. His life is different. His wife is no longer his wife. He doesn't have a son, and he is a very accomplished scientist. And I think that basically this story is supposed to be about kind of like a multiverse, something which I believe he as a scientist might be responsible for, and it's about kind of traveling between different multiverses, trying to get back to his wife and son and get back to the life that he knows. Sounds really fantastic. I'm sure there's going to be a good bit of hard sci-fi in here, and so this is one that I'm really excited for. Been excited about it for a while, so one of these days it's got to come up on the wheel. Hopefully today will be the day. The next book that I'd really be excited to read is A Woman of the Sword by Anne Smith Spark. This book really caught my eye, I think, because of the title and also the cover. The cover begs a lot of questions because, as you see, there's this female warrior here who's kind of existing in this mountainous landscape, this kind of stereotype fantasy world. But the big difference is she's got a couple of kids along with her for the journey. So that is something that I don't think you see that much in fantasy. Thankfully there are more female warriors now that you see in fantasy books and movies and video games and that sort of thing. But very rarely are they mothers. And so I think that it's going to be fascinating to see how a warrior can exist in a gritty, kind of violent world where she's going to be having to use her wits, where she's going to have to be using brute force, but at the same time, she's got these two little toe rags tagging along with her, and she needs to protect them. And of course, they're going to be vulnerable, and they will in turn be her vulnerability. I think. I haven't read the book yet, but yeah, I think this has the potential to be extremely tense, kind of edge of your seat stuff. From the reviews that I've seen of this book, it's been praised for its raw, gritty emotion, dark world building, very vivid characters, again, which I just love, vivid characters that jump off of the page. And so, yeah, I'm just so curious to see how this story unfolds. I don't know that much about the plot beyond the setting and some of the characters. And so I'm going to be going into this one cold and just trusting the reviews. Another book that I'm really excited to read is The Fisherman by John Langan. This is a cosmic horror, and I've got to admit, I am a little bit nervous about reading it because I've kind of got hyped up by the reviews that have been on Goodreads. It's overwhelmingly positive, but the reason I'm a little bit nervous is because I'm starting to have an inkling that maybe, just something I'm discovering about myself, that maybe I don't like cosmic horror. I read a little bit of Lovecraft and it didn't really hit for me in the way that it does for some people. And then I read a cosmic horror book last month that I'm going to be talking about in the next couple of days. And as soon as it starts to move into the realms of cosmic horror, I get a little bit lost, and I think just as a necessity, cosmic horror is vague. Things start to blur around the edges, and everything becomes beyond human understanding, and that's when I start to lose the thread a little bit. And so, yeah, I do want to keep going with it because I love the sense of just eeriness. I love the sense of being afraid of the unknown. And because this book has such incredible reviews, I want to give it just one more chance. The genre, just give the genre one more chance. This book is about two widowers who share a love of fishing. They really have sort of thrown themselves into fishing to find some solace. The two characters find this mysterious creek that's known to be haunted. And so, it is about cosmic horror, but it's also about grief and about repairing old emotional wounds. And I'm in for all that, So, yeah, this one, I'm apprehensive, but I'm also very curious about it. The next book that I'm just dying to read is Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie. Listen, I loved the First Law trilogy. You're probably sick of hearing me talk about the First Law trilogy. I really enjoyed it, and I've just been wanting to dive back into that world, but this book never comes up when I spin the wheel. I'm really hoping that it comes up this week. It's about, I think the protagonist is called Monza Mercato, and she is a female assassin that gets betrayed by her gang, I think it is, and she survives. They try and take her out, and then she survives. Kind of sounds a little bit like Kill Bill in a way. And she decides that she's going to hunt down all of the individuals that betrayed her. Like I say, very much like Kill Bill. So I'm intrigued to read this. I want to dive back into the world, and Joe Abercrombie is just known for his gritty world building, his in-depth characters, and what can I say? I feel like I speak about this book in anticipation of reading it every month, and every month it doesn't show up. Hopefully May is the month. The next book that I'm really excited to read is You Like It Darker by Stephen King. Actually, this is a collection of short stories that is not released yet, so I don't have a physical copy. I don't think I'm going to get a physical copy either. I pre-ordered it on Audible. It's being released on May 21st, which also happens to be my birthday, so I decided to get it for myself. Listen, when it comes to me, I'm a generous guy, you know? Too generous, really. You Like It Darker is a collection of 12 short stories by Stephen King, and if you know anything about me, you'll know that I like Stephen King. I've got a whole shelf dedicated to his books. It's actually just there. That one. And so, yeah, I think that Stephen King is actually underrated when it comes to short stories. I don't think enough people talk about his short stories when they talk about Stephen King. They tend to talk about his big fat books like The Stand and It. They very often forget that he's a very accomplished short story writer, and yeah, I want to read it, man. I want to be one of the first people to read it. It comes out on my birthday. Do you know what I mean? It's meant to be. The next book on the wheel is Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. I've never read any Robin Hobb, and I'd really like to dive into her world. This is part of the Farseer trilogy, and the Farseer trilogy is actually one trilogy amongst a whole universe of trilogies, all created by Robin Hobb, which I believe is called The Realm of the Elderlings. So if I like this book, then there's a whole universe for me to dive into. I think it's something like, I don't know, maybe 16, 17, 18 books, something like that. So I'm hoping that I like this one as much as I think I will. It's about Fitz, who is a bastard born into a royal line, and he's kind of an outcast and he's pushed to the side, but then he's brought in as an assassin to represent the royal family, or to work on behalf of the royal family. And it's all about his journey of being trained and starting as an underdog, and then hopefully rising up through the ranks to become a key player in the monarchy, make a big comeback. Again, you know, there's a lot riding on this one, because if I like this, then I'm probably going to like all of the trilogy and all of the other trilogies. And I know there's a lot of Robin Hobb fans in that follow the channel. So hopefully, you know, we can kind of read along and enjoy the journey together. Next up is another book that promises to have a lot of tension, and that is Shelter by Jung Yun. This story revolves around Kyung Chao, who is a young father to a financially struggling family, and he lives in the shadow of his successful parents, who I think, you know, for the most part, he kind of idolizes. But then one day, an act of violence leaves his parents unable to live on their own any longer. And so he's kind of forced to take them in. And now, for the first time in a long time, they're all living together under one roof. He, his parents, and also his own family. I'm told that this book has themes of family duty against the kind of backdrop of violence and resentment, and how these elements kind of coalesce to form a story that seems both tense and emotionally charged. For this one, like I said at the beginning, I'm expecting a lot of tension. Okay, so those are 8 of the 10 books. And then for these dark spots here, because you can't really see them very well, what I've decided to do is just have these two represent a continuation of the Red Rising trilogy, which I've read the first 2 books, and I liked the first one, really liked the second one. Very excited to read the third one. So if it lands on one of these, then I'll continue with the Red Rising series. And also, it's probably worth mentioning that if it does land on that, the next book that I'll be reading is Morning Star. So, all right, let's give it a spin and find out the first book that I'm going to be reading in the month of May 2024. Lonesome Dove. So now My curiosity will be satisfied. I might read Lonesome Dove and sort of say to myself, you know what? Yeah, mate, maybe I do like Westerns. We'll see. Okay, next up. Lonesome Dove again. Ignore that. Next up. A Woman of the Sword. All right, all right. So we get to sort of go into the gritty world of fantasy, but also with that added tension of parenthood and the responsibilities of motherhood in the middle of this chaos. Exciting. All right, next up. A Woman of the Sword again. This happens too much. I know it's a coincidence, right? But this happens too much. I always get the same one twice. Let's see if it happens again. All right, so we're going to be continuing with the Red Rising trilogy, which I think I said was Morning Star. So that's going to be a fun read. I'm actually really excited about this because I enjoyed Golden Sun quite a lot, and also it ended on. I won't give any spoilers or anything like that, but it had a really, I'll just say, epic ending, and it asked a lot of questions, and I can't wait to get the answers. So as you can probably tell, I'm really happy about this one. Okay, next up. Dark Matter. And if you're ever curious, and I always say it, we go by the dongle, right? We don't go by the arrow because sometimes it can land right on the edge. And so we just go by the dongle. The dongle is the decider. And so Dark Matter. And I'm really excited to read this one as well. Never read any Blake Crouch. I'm a big fan of hard sci-fi. I don't know if this is going to qualify as hard sci-fi, but I suppose we'll find out together. If you'd like to see any of the reviews for these books that I'm going to be reading in the month of May, then you can click up here. I think the first book that I'll probably review is going to be Lonesome Dove. It's a big fat book, you know, and so there's a lot of room for, I just see this as about 800 pages of character development. Can't wait. Let's get into it. Thanks so much for watching, by the way. Really appreciate it. And as always, happy reading.